This is CNN Breaking News.
Let's get back to our breaking news this morning. We know that admitted NSA leaker Edward Snowden has left Hong Kong, and reports say he's on his way to Russia right now, but that's not expected to be his final destination. Joining me now on the phone is Glenn Greenwald. He's the journalist who interviewed Snowden and broke the NSA story in the Guardian newspaper. Glenn, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So you tweeted earlier the fact that a person flies to city X does not mean that that is their intended ultimate destination. First of all, what do you mean by that?
Well, there seems to be, there's ever since Snowden first emerged as the whistleblower, the U.S. government and the media have been doing what they always do to whistleblowers, which is trying to demonize him. And there are suggestions this morning that he must be defecting to Russia, like they were alleging that he was going to defect to China, or that he's headed to Cuba, trying to cast some sort of nefarious mood to what it is that he's doing, which is simply trying to stay out of the grasp of the U.S. government, which punishes whistleblowers very severely. And I was simply issuing a warning to media outlets not to reach conclusions about where it is that he intends to stay based on the cities through which he's flying.
Can you confirm that Snowden is heading to Russia and then possibly onto Cuba?
Well, there seems to be a lot of media reports that have confirmed that he is on a plane from Hong Kong to Moscow, and that there's another ticket that is in his name from Moscow to Havana. But I'm simply saying that that doesn't mean that Cuba is his final destination. There are a lot of places in the world that if you tried to get to from Hong Kong, you would go Moscow and then Havana and then to that other place.
Okay, so can you at least confirm the one stop to Moscow?
I don't know that he's physically on the plane. There are plenty of news reports that have put him on that plane and seem pretty reliable.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Did efforts to get him out of Hong Kong, did those efforts intensify when the charges were unveiled?
I don't know what happened in terms of discussions between his lawyers in Hong Kong and the Hong Kong government. I think the statement from the government of Hong Kong is very much worth sharing with your viewers if you haven't already and looking at, because what it basically says is that the demand by the United States government that he be turned over to the U.S. did not comport with the legal requirements under the law of Hong Kong. And they also said, and by the way, we are interested, speaking of law, in investigating and understanding how it is that you've been hacking into our civilian infrastructure. So I think the posture of the Hong Kong government was driven both by legal considerations and by concerns over U.S. hacking into their universities, research facilities, and the like.
Glenn, how closely in contact are you with Snowden?
I've had, he's my source for the stories that we've been writing, so I've had fairly regular contact with him over the last several weeks.
So does this come as a surprise, his movement today?
I think in this case, nothing really comes as a surprise. I think, the question that we ought to be asking is why is an American citizen who joined the U.S. military to fight in the war in Iraq, who has worked for the CIA and the NSA, why does he feel compelled to flee his own country simply because he informs his fellow citizens about this giant spying apparatus that's being built in the dark and about lies being told by U.S. officials? So if I were a whistleblower looking at the Obama administration's record, I too would want to stay out of the grasp of the U.S. government. Dan Ellsberg said the same thing on CNN the other night. And so it doesn't come as a surprise to me, that he's trying to avoid falling into the clutches of the U.S. government.
So WikiLeaks is saying this morning that they are helping Snowden leave. Were you aware that this is in the works?
Well, WikiLeaks has made public statements over the past several days that they are attempting to help him either seek asylum or obtain asylum in third-party countries, meaning not Hong Kong and not the United States. So I think that WikiLeaks has been pretty upfront about their support for Snowden, consistent with their values of transparency. They have contacts around the world, and I don't know what the extent exactly is of their involvement, but it doesn't surprise me that they're supportive of what he's doing.
So let me hear what you think. Do you think that Hong Kong allowing Snowden to leave is going to strain their relations with the U.S.?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in U.S. political culture, the worth of a country is generally measured by the extent to which they adhere to U.S. dictates. And so had they simply turned him over and disregarded all legal constraints, I think U.S. political and media circles would have celebrated Hong Kong as some sort of beacon of the rule of law. Now that they've issued a fairly defiant statement to the U.S., refusing to submit to their dictates, I think you're going to see all sorts of condemnations of Hong Kong and certainly recriminations from the U.S. government toward Hong Kong. That's what the U.S. does. It punishes other governments for refusing to comply with U.S. demands.
Okay, Glenn Greenwald, thanks for joining us this morning. And we're going to be right back.